Hey folks, this is a quick tech demo of an AI-enabled natural language interface to Apostrophe's admin UI. So we're going to edit some CMS content with text instead of through the UI. I'm going to start by scrolling down this little article so you can see. Not too much to it, but you'll note we have some existing text here that we're going to work with. Now I'm going to open up our AI chatbot. And we are going to challenge it to do something that can't be done with a chatbot that's only able to manipulate text. We're going to ask it to restructure this content as a two-column layout with point and counterpoint headings, move the existing text to the point column, and write its own counterpoint text. So this is only possible with an agent that's able to understand the structure of documents in Apostrophe. And to do that, it has been given tools that allow it to, in a very surgical way, get information about the schema of widgets and documents, and then get information about individual properties of the document, and finally perform patches to do the work that it needs to do without touching things that don't need to be modified. This greatly reduces the risk of errors and also helps quite a bit with the budget of the context window so that we don't either have requests fail, get rate limited, or simply exceed our budget. Sure enough, now we have a two-column layout, we have the original text, and we have a new column with the counterpoint text. Next, I'm going to try restructuring that text as bulleted lists. Generating new text from scratch is a nice trick, as you saw here, but it should be noted that from an SEO standpoint, and especially an AEO or answer engine optimization standpoint, it is important to keep the amount of truly AI-generated text limited because all of those LLMs that you want to feature in are biased toward original content, content that was not produced by their own algorithm. So it's important to emphasize human written text. At the same time, we can use an AI agent to transform that text and get it into the structure we want. So here we were able to take our existing writing and reformat it, but without making the kinds of changes that would make it look like slop from the standpoint of a bot that is indexing the site. Next, I'm going to add an image of a star at the end of the article. Now this will involve using the search tool that we've given to the bot so that it can find content in the existing media library. Now, of course, could we do image generation? Naturally, we could. But image generation has the same issues that I mentioned. Resolution is limited. It's not always the right solution. Will we support it? Of course we will. But we think that professionals will most often be interested in using content they have in their media library or possibly making transformations to that content. For instance, it would be an exciting feature if you could ask it to take that image and make a permanent change to it, but not actually generate it from scratch. Speaking of making changes, let's go ahead and reformat those columns here. So this shows off not just the layout feature of Apostrophe, which we're already seeing, but also the newer styles feature that allows us to control the fine points of how content is laid out. And what's interesting about that is that we're giving it enough power to see the schema and then enough hints to understand how to correctly apply that schema to create different visual effects. Technically, these using features that are part of layout, but I'll show you more of that when I come back to the image widget in a moment. This is pretty wide. This is not the greatest layout on the page. So let's change that as well. We're going to change the width of the star to 50% and center it. In doing so, we're using the newer styles features of Apostrophe, which are driven by Apostrophe schema. Oh, and this time it fibbed. Classic fib from the AI. Says it did it, didn't do anything. Are we asking it to really do things and to use its tools? You bet we are. Does that fail once in a while? Sure does. That won't come as a surprise to anyone who's worked with agentic tools. Let's give that another try. All right, here we go. This time it should use its tools. There we go. Our star is now 50% and aligned in the center. As you can see, you can get conversational and correct these errors. And that's something you'll have to do just as you would in working with any intelligent agent. So we've been through our little script, but the question is, how does this work and how, or more importantly, how can we extend this to meet the needs of our individual projects? So let me show you, first of all, the tools that the chatbot is being given. And this is, of course, just a technology preview. So these are basic, but effective for this kind of change. The first tool is the search tool. This can be used to find a document anywhere in Apostrophe. And we give it a hint that Apostrophe's built-in search is not a vector search, so it doesn't understand, fuzzy differences in spelling or fuzzy synonyms. But we empower the AI to figure that out on its own and try additional searches. Similarly, we have an update tool. This is used to patch and make changes to any property in a document. This is designed for very surgical use. So the ID, we talk about the updates that we're going to make. The properties here, the names of them are dot paths to properties as deep as desired in the document. That's intentional. We want to discourage the tool from attempting to restate everything when it's only changing one thing because this greatly increases the chances that it will not make errors where it discards content. We also have tools to fetch information about the schema of a document type. It would need that to make an update to, for instance, our article, and to get information about the schema of a widget. It will need this in order to make changes to something like a layout, or to introduce a layout where there was no layout before, which is something you saw in the demo. The generate ID tool is simply a way to generate unique IDs for elements. Providing a tool for this helps ensure that we don't wind up with a predictable series of IDs. Add widget is a tool that's used to add another widget to the page. This is another example of being as granular as we can. We could allow the bot to do this by just using the update API, passing the original area and adding one more thing to the array. And we have done that, but sometimes that causes content loss because the agent will not always correctly restate all of the widgets it's not paying close attention to. To both reduce the context window and to reduce the risk of errors, we provide an add widget tool and bias the bot heavily toward actually using that to safely make changes. Similarly, we have an explicit delete widget tool. And as I said, all of these can work with widget IDs nested arbitrarily deep in the document. We're giving inspired really by features that were already part of our REST API, especially our patch API, which has always supported this kind of a deep reference. We have decided to extend that and do that also for things like the get properties API. Many different tools that will let us get just what we need from a document. Get context, this fetches the current context document, in this case, the current article. And it's interesting to see how this works because we're then leaving it up to the bot to understand, is the user asking me to change something else, or is the user asking me to change the current page in front of me? We find that for the most part, it's able to correctly infer that. But just to be on the safe side, our plan is to always edit draft content, to never publish content directly from the AI, and to also add support for the undo redo stack on the page. The get properties tool is related to the issue I mentioned earlier of being able to, in a surgical way, get just the data you need to avoid blowing out the whole context window. When you retrieve a document, many times you will get back a reference, a special string like this that says, hey, this isn't the actual value. You're going to have to call back to get the actual value. And our update tool will look for these strings and actively reject them so that the bot is forced to correctly get the properties it needs and avoid content loss. There's one more feature I'd like to show you, which I used to help improve the results when changing that layout to add a gap between the columns. That feature relies on a lot of understanding of the layout widget and the layout column widget and their schema properties. And can the AI figure that on its own? Yes, but not perfectly. We find that it's helpful to give it a hint. So we have done that here by adding a new AI skill property or an AI skill option that can be set in any module, specifically any widget module or document type module, in order to give the AI additional hints. Now, this is clearly very similar to a Claude skill or simply an AI skill these days, which is exactly what it was inspired by. And the idea is to help the model do the right thing when it decides it needs to work with that particular type of widget. So, are there many things that we haven't done here yet? Absolutely. And certainly, this UI is very preliminary. In fact, it's simply a POC UI. We have much to do. Clearly, there's lots of debugging happening here. Clearly, there's lots of fairly technical information in the chat back, the progress that we're seeing. Although we do plan to find ways to apply that in practice. And there are many other things that we want to do, like adding it to the undo redo history, and just giving it more consideration overall. But we're finding this tech demo is pretty compelling, and some clients have actually asked to be able to apply it sooner. So we will be releasing a technology preview to give them the ability to do that. Thanks.